Welcome back to A New View, and we are so glad that you joined us. If you've tuned into our last two episodes this week, you know that we're talking about all things social media. We talked about the good of social media. We talked about a bit of the bad of social media. And today's episode is all about how can we be better at social media.
That's right. We've got some good tips and takeaways and stuff that we've struggled with and that we're doing better, we think, and that we want to do better, and stuff you can use for your kids, which, as I've been reading, it's actually stuff that works well for adults on social media too, because we're new to this as adults. You know, we didn't grow up with social media. Our kids are, which is a tough thing for them too. It's fun for them, but it's also, there's a lot of things they have to be concerned about. We need to be concerned for them.
Right.
So.
And the beauty is they do give us privacy and setting controls. And I know we touched a bit about it because so many people, they're resharing of the stories, the resharing of the sick or the sensational or just the fake news. But a lot of things too, the thing that, I know everyone, if you've been on social media, especially Facebook, the whole thing, Facebook's going to start charging you.
Is that
remember?
True? No, I was like,
you remember?
I was like, is that true?
No, but you remember when that?
I remember that.
When that post was just every one of your friends was posting that Facebook's going to start charging, and they were so mad. And so then, of course, that was not true. And then the next one is, for years they've done the whole thing about Messenger, like don't use Messenger, like they can take pictures from your camera, or they can do. Well, that's the same thing that Snapchat, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all of those have the same thing. So it's not that they're going to access your phone camera and grab something and then just randomly put it out there. And I think that's what people fear. But what I always tell my kids and my daughter, if you don't have anything in that phone that you don't want somebody not to see, what's the big deal? Yeah. If you have something in there that somebody shouldn't see, then there's a heart issue. There's a problem there somewhere.
Let mama have your phone.
Let mama have
You're going to get a whooping.
No, but I'm a big proponent. If your children are, mine are 18 now, so it's a little bit different. But I still monitor their social media to an extent. But when they're younger, I still have all their passwords. Right. And I check it and I do all of that. But that's just being a good parent. That's good parenting to say, this is not really something that I think you should see. Or, hey, this friend of yours that keeps commenting on this, he's using a lot of foul language. I'm not saying, because believe me, I've used foul language. It's not something I'm proud about.
You have?
What the? I'm kidding.
I know, sometimes it still, would slip out, and I really, that's something that God has really had to work on me. I'm a lot better than I used to be, but sometimes I feel that it can be like a spirit. It jumps on you, and it will, but like I tell my kids, I said, if that friend, that's every word, that's not cool. That's not cool. You might want to distance yourself. You might want to remove those comments because those are offensive to people. Right. But then I've had parents or other people send me messages and say, your child did this on social media and it really offended me. And I've looked at it and thought, that's a boy being a boy. There's not really, to me, that wouldn't be offensive, but out of respect for them, I've said, this person voiced that it offended them, so can you please take it down? And then I've had to do, we talked a little bit about public shaming, but I think in a parenting situation, it's a little bit okay, but I had to make my son said, this is what your post on Instagram is going to be. Sorry, I'm on hiatus right now until I can post worthier things. Right. And gave him a timeout on that and said, you're going to put, and not to say that he always does, he doesn't always get it right, but being a good parent is, let's look at those things and how can we be better on that, but not letting other people, they just entice this fear that there's a new thing that's going on. I know that some of y'all have seen that when you take a picture of something, especially with the updates with Apple or even the Android phone, that when you're out there, it will show you what you've just taken a picture of.
On your Facebook or
would you like to share this? Only you can see this. Well, that enticed fear in people. And so then I had a lot of friends that were out there publicly saying, they've already started it. They've hijacked our phones. I took this and that. And I'm like, no, there's a beauty in social media, and there's also where if we're educated and we know that we can control our settings, but not to get into that fear by that they're not just going to miraculously get those things out of your phone unless you're doing something that's compromising your
allowing
privacy
them access.
Or allowing them access.
For sure. Yeah. I think I'd like to do just a quick recap in case you haven't joined us for our other two episodes, which this is piggybacking off of that. but just statistically that, women are using Facebook more than men, and the ages of those women are 35 to 49. Instagram happens to be a younger audience for social media, but we love Instagram as well. And those are really the only two I think we talk a lot about, or we're going to today. There's also Snapchat, since we're going to talk about stuff for the youngins. But as you were talking and you were talking about parenting, it just reminds me of, some of this is just having an awareness, is just being aware. And that's what we want to do, is just take a moment and let this be a bit of an awakening, a bit of an awareness, a bit of looking at social media with some intention. Right. And when we do that as adults and as women, if we have kids and husbands, that's going to help us open our eyes on maybe how to give them some direction or pray for them. If you have kids, as you're saying, it's not so much, it's praying for them, but really telling them, hey, this is not acceptable, or we need to address this situation. I have, our daughter will be 11 this month, and she is not the only social media that she's on. She has a Slime account. She loves Musical.ly, which there's a ton of things with Musical.ly that you have to address as well, stuff that I still am researching for Musical.ly. She doesn't have Instagram. She's asked me about Instagram because she does think it's fun and she likes all the pictures, but she hasn't done Instagram or Facebook yet. And I'm cautious, because of how much I'm on it. And as I've done more research about it, I don't want to be fearful about allowing my kids on social media. I don't believe God wants us to be fearful about using things. It's a matter of being aware, and it's a matter of asking Him, Lord, does this glorify you? And not this, it doesn't have to be this grand thing that we're doing where, how we like to post something, from the Bible pretty much daily or, every few days or whatever. For us, that's not work, right? We're glorifying, we're just being ourselves. Right. But for a lot of people, it doesn't look like that, and that's okay. It's just a matter of asking God where this is where I'm at, and I feel I need to work on this area with social media. I need to educate my kids. I need to be prepared for them to be on social media. That's what today is, and we want to give you some practical tips and things that we've learned. I loved how you shared your story about how you chose to respond to a post versus how you might have responded initially. Basically, allowing God to come into just that one instance and change what your response would have been. I love that. That's being so open and aware. And that's what we're not like, hey, you need to do this, this, and this. We just want you to say, hey, I can do this better. How can we be better?
And that was the better, because like I said, I haven't always done that. I mean, I had some bad, and especially during the hurricane, I actually lost my biscuits a little bit, just because people were they were comparing the tragedies. And being a person that I own a home in Rockport, and I'm from there, and that's my community, and I have family there, and I love it, and I'm blessed that we didn't get the damage that many people experienced and lost their whole homes and their livelihoods. But I felt like people were like, they've forgotten about Rockport. Their focus is all on Houston. And I was trying to explain to people, the immediate threat is over there. The water's still rising here. The rain's still here. People's houses are still going underwater. The freeways are underwater. The reason they're focusing also is because Houston was a bigger, Rockport definitely has like 10,000 people or 20,000, whatever. The thing is, not to say that that's any less important, those 20,000, but Houston and the surrounding areas encompasses 6 million people. When you have 6 million people that are not able to get out of high water, that it's continuing to rise. And people they were commenting back to me saying that y'all can just swim. And I'm like, Lord, how do I respond to this gracefully? I lost my biscuits, and I had to come back and apologize to my friend and just say, I'm on edge, and I cannot see why people are comparing these tragedies and this big, but that water was so swift, it moved concrete barricades. The water was so swift and so high. The concrete freeway barricades were moved. And so, and that's the thing, is like, so much of social media is like, who's suffering more than this person, or who's getting blessed more than this person. And we cannot look at it like that. Right. Because if we are, our hearts are never going to click with compassion. What Kim was talking about. We're never going to click with compassion. We're never going to be able to pause and not respond in the flesh, because I have responded in the flesh.
Sure,
and
we
then
all have.
To stopped and then said, I don't understand this, but how can I respond trusting that God knows?
Sure.
I'm thinking about how it's the reaction is the flesh. The flesh
Yes.
reacts to something, but the compassion is a choice.
Ooh, yeah.
Yes, and we have to take the time
Yes.
for that. And a lot of times on Facebook, we're scrolling. We take time to write out something that's not our best, but we have to.
I backspace a lot.
There you go.
I type it and nah.
When you start backspacing, you know that God's working on you, because I used to have
Backspace a lot. Hashtag hit that backspace.
Yes,
that
I love that.
Yes, hit the backspace. Just pause and reflect, because again, we've talked about it, our opinions are not always needed, because a lot of times, our opinions, and I know I've shared lots of times the little quirky things my dad used to say about opinions, and y'all can find that out. You can just search the little hashtag, I'm sure. But about opinions, we all have them, but it's really, are they really needed? And I think that when people look at maybe what does your news feed look like, if you're resharing the sensational and the cruelness, about other people, what does that say about what's in your heart?
Yeah.
People don't really. You couldn't be that angry and that upset, if you've really, so that person is hurting somehow.
Yeah.
And they just want to keep sharing that hurt. So again, I love that whole click with compassion. Look at it from that, that Colossians 3, look at everything from a heavenly viewpoint. And then the Philippians 4:8 that we talked about through this whole series is, whatever is true, whatever is noble, right, pure, lovely, admirable, excellent, praiseworthy. Don't share that if you don't know it's 100% true.
Yeah.
That's a really good gauge. Don't share that if
Could
you
you
don't
imagine if you had a disclaimer everything that you shared or liked by saying, I'm not 100% sure this is true. I'm not even fully sure where it came from.
Right.
Would you share it? Probably not.
Yeah. That's good.
In Luke also it says, a good man brings good things out of the good stored up in his heart, and an evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in his heart. For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And
the fingers
type. That's right. That's why you have a lot of you have cyberbullying, or you have, we've used the word, I don't like the word, but trolls, the internet troll, whatever you want to call that.
Yes,
I don't like that word, but I mean, it's there. So do we want to move on to what kind of tips we want to give people?
Sure. I mean, just, my basic tip is just, setting those controls, the privacy. I mean, if your kids are not supposed to be on social media because of the age, just should be, I think it's 13 and over and things like that. Don't set them up fake profiles just to go do that. I mean, there's a reason why they set an age limit on those.
Yeah.
And also, to be gauging, because even like we talked about with Laura, kids are getting even inundated some images on some Disney games that are not age appropriate. So just be a mindful, parent.
Yeah.
My son, I was in his room the other day, and up on his computer screen, we're in his email I had sent him an email, so we're looking at it together, and on the side of the screen is some paintings from some website. It's just their advertisement, but it was paintings of nude women, and I was like, what have you been looking at? And he said that he likes cars. He's got cars he draws all over his room, and he said, they had a painting of a car one day, and I went to their site or some such, and now he's got this advertisement on the side with nudes.
Yeah. Like, great. I was just thinking of the stuff you're talking about. So the privacy settings, I did read something that I thought was interesting. I read an article from the Pew Research Center, and it's the Social Media Update 2016 is what it was titled, and it gave a lot of really great statistics. We've kind of talked about some of those in another episode, but it almost gave like this little thing that I had to highlight, almost like a disclaimer, but not. But it says, or I wrote that this article lists the various ways we use social media. Then it comments on, it says, all the while. So, we're using social media to seek out information. Half of us are using it for news. We used it for the election. We used it to learn information about our 2016 presidential election. Remember all of the stuff that we saw on social media with that, okay?
Fake news. It was
okay,
not,
and the comments and the division and the Republicans, all of that versus whatever, okay? We're trying to navigate all that, right? We're engaging and interacting and all that. And then it says, all the while engaging in an ongoing effort to navigate the complex privacy issues. This is an article that's addressing adults and our stats, okay? We're trying to navigate all of this and the privacy. so you got to give us, and parents too, we got to remember, we have to give ourselves grace on this.
Right,
We're not going to always do it right for our kids,
right.
And make the best choices. But, it is our job to help them with privacy settings. I went to commonsensemedia.com or commonsense.org, a great website to look for information on how to help your kids navigate through social media. Right. I personally, just in my experience, believe that every child is different. Right. And yes, Facebook, Instagram, Musically, all of them will tell you what ages that your child should be on social media. Right. I am the parent. I will decide that for myself and for my child. But I can't make that decision unless I'm informed, unless I take the time and inform myself. And as a believer, I'm also going to ask God, is it time for this? Do I want to open my kids up to this yet? And I think we have to have that confidence and know that, we're not always going to get it right. But if we inform ourselves and make a conscious, intentional decision on how we want to do this and how we want to parent and allow our kids to get on social media. I love the stuff that you said that you've done with your son. I think that's wonderful. But one of the things is, yes, use your privacy settings. And I, again, would say every parent and child is different. I am not going to judge another parent on what age they decide to let their child on social media. I can't do that. I'm still trying to figure it out. When my kids are older and I'm, in a place where I feel more wiser, maybe Michelle, as you've walked through some different things, I may have a different opinion, but I'm just in a place where I'm still figuring some of that out. And so,
but some of them have an age limit now. So if Facebook says no one under 13 is what I'm talking about. If you're creating and your kid that's 10, 11, 12, and you're having to alter their birth date so that it lets them set up a thing, you're crossing them. That's dishonesty. Yeah. Let's face it, that's dishonesty. That's not discerning. They've given you a guideline. Now, again, your kid at 13, when they say you can have a profile, like you said, may not be mature enough. May not even be ready then. That or ready for that. But that's what I'm talking about. When they give you a set guideline, there are a lot of people that allow their kid to go on there before the set age limit.
And I would say for me, I've had a friend that they're from Brazil, and all of her family is in Brazil. And she's my daughter's age. They're almost 11. And she's allowed her to set an account so she can keep up with her family, and she monitors it. And I respect that. I'm like, you're involved in that. I get it. I think she's had to look at stuff a little bit differently and educate herself. And that's a whole other responsibility. That's, it's tough.
Yeah, it can be work.
One of the second tips they put on here, obviously, we've talked about. Kim, you were really good, both of you, about saying, like, taking a pause before you post. Think before you post something. I know even we have to think, we're putting, I feel like, positive things out there. Yeah. And I still think before I post, because I don't want to come off like, oh, well, I believe, and being judgy. And I just want to be positive, and I want to encourage you, and I want to share what I've struggled with and do it in an encouraging way. And that's how we've approached it. I think, don't you have to pause even too?
Exactly, because our views are not going to be your views, and nor do we want our views to necessarily be your views. But if we can tell you different things that we've gone through or what we've done, and that's really what the idea behind A New View is. If we could just tell you some of our experiences, that it hopefully gives you a new view on certain
understanding.
Things. A new understanding.
If you may still go on about thinking the same thing you thought the whole time, and that's great too.
You can maybe you're right. Yes, you can disagree with us, but we hope that you still would like us, that wouldn't go to instant dislike, or that you can accept us, that we have varying opinions.
Because we do. We have varying opinions.
On everything. And you'll see that in the shows and upcoming shows, things. But what it is we accept each other because we know that God speaks to us all differently. He has us change differently. I mean, we could be different ages. We're in different seasons. We have different dynamics in our families and in how we live and our workforce and ministry, and how God's taken us from, glory to glory, or, changed our defects of character. Some days it doesn't feel like he's taking us anywhere, but it's true. It is our view. We don't want our views to necessarily be your views, but we hope that you will take away a little nugget, a little tidbit to say there is things in this. There's ways that we can be better with social media, and I think the key here is to click with compassion, to look at things maybe from a heavenly viewpoint, not a fleshly viewpoint, and also to be intentional.
Yes. One of the things on here which this was a video I watched talking to kids as well on how to be on social media, and it said be respectful. We need that as advice as adults, being respectful. Social media graciousness. It really is, the whole thing is trying to be respectful online. But if you see some of the times if people are disrespectful online, you're also running into the fact that they're probably disrespectful in person.
Right.
And that's, not to be judging that, but if you're putting it out there that, you're slamming this and this and that, you are putting yourself in a position for us to think that, you don't really have much respect. You're not very respectful.
But not to go to the condemnation, to have concern. So to me, that concern, I love that concern and not condemnation, because that concern helps me pray for that person better. And it helps me say, wow, they're really hurting if this is what's come out on their social media, or this is what's come out of their heart and their mouth.
You're right.
Absolutely. Because if we were all disqualified from the words that we unspoke, let's face it, we would all be disqualified. We're all going to say things, and we're going to, sometimes we're not in the position where we've kind of been able to pause. It's just a knee-jerk reaction. And we're going to let stress or things, and things can fly out. I mean, we can't take that word back.
We see that a lot just in relationships, not even just on social media, but think of the things that I know I've said in a relationship that, like with my husband or whoever, that I'm like, oh, I wish I could take that back, And I read this too as, we don't, if we're teaching our kids to be respectful online, then we're saving them from judgment, as well, and saving them from what someone might perceive that as. I put on the fourth one, I put careful. Oh, this is for young people, being careful about revealing your location.
Right.
Have you had that?
That's not just for young people.
No, that's for adults too, because sometimes it automatically does that. But take that you can actually just click on that to take it off, or you can say don't reveal location. And it's probably a good thing too. To their date of birth and things, especially young kids and things, because you don't want to know their, you can give their birthday, but you don't have to do the year.
We take the year off ours. Just kidding. And the last thing I was going to add, this is good for us too. Obviously, watch the clock. It's very easy to sit on social media for a while. Guilty. And just be mindfully looking, and then you go from one social media platform to the other, and it was just an awareness of, hey, let's be more mindful of our time. So I thought these were some really good, helpful things, and those came from commonsense.org. That was a good website. I really liked it.
We did this when my kids were getting to the age, the whole teens, and 13 is when they got to set theirs up. But from 13 until they're 18 now. I mean, I also implemented that. This time of night, Mom gets all of your phones. You don't go to bed with your phones.
Yeah, that's a good one.
You don't do those things. You keep them in a public area, not just so Mom can creep on them.
Right. We're going to do that too.
And moms and dads, you should be creeping on your children's accounts. You should be looking at what they're looking at. You should see what their friends are texting them. You need to be doing that. That's responsible. That's not invading their privacy. That's being responsible, because they may not know those things, but put them in a thing so that they're not. Now that they're older, and I know they do that, I'm much more relaxed on some of them. And then sometimes I'll get them and I'll be like, really, dude? Like this, this is not so bueno. But giving them grace and letting them know. And so I just like to tell them, though, if you don't put those things out there, then there's never going to be a position where someone's going to, people are going to judge you if you put good or bad. It's not a matter of judgment, but it's not going to be something that's going to hinder a possibility down the line, because you've seen people that have put things on social media, just for instance, the tweets or the different things that go out, and they've lost their job.
Yeah,
they've
seen that recently.
They think it's freedom of speech, but there's still a consequence. So just because we've been given freedom of speech, you are still held accountable for what you put out there.
Absolutely. That's a good point. I like that.
I actually was looking at our Facebook settings the other day, and because we were talking about the following me thing, everyone was freaking out recently saying, people are following me, and if you go to block people, you type in following me, and it was people who had said in their profile said following my dreams, so now we're blocking people for following their dreams. But actually on Facebook, people can be following you. If you go in to look at your friends list, if there's an option that says following, then you have followers. If it's not there, no one's following you. And what they're following when they follow you is your public profile.
Right.
So everybody's picture at the top, I don't know the lingo for it, the top of your background
your
picture, your cover photo, and then your profile, and then whatever posts you've made that say public.
Public, yes.
They can see all of that and follow it, even if they're not your friend.
Okay.
So all of our pages are going to be as public or as private as you want them to be.
Right.
You are in total control of your settings, and you need to consider the content and what your intention was, and then you choose how public or private to make that.
That's good.
Because I did a lot of posts just friends only, and then like I said, when I got into the ministry and different people, they wanted to connect, and they said, oh, I really liked what you shared. My friend reshared it, because Facebook has changed it, so what you used to be able to share, people could see, but now you can't see it unless it's made public. So then I did change a lot of my posts to public, but when I still post private things generally about my children, even though they're older, a lot of times I will make those friends only. So like Kim said, we are given the liberty to make it as public or as private as we want it to be.
That's good. I didn't know some of that. Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people don't know. They instead they're like, oh, they can see everything from your thing.
Yeah.
It's not the
Actually, in that setting, it will give you the option of clicking something to see what your public profile looks like.
Yes.
So you can see exactly what they would see.
So is there something that comes up every time you post something?
Post,
should
you select your audience? Yes.
Okay, and should you?
You can change it every time if it makes you happy.
I'm gonna look at that again. Yeah, and there's a different thing for following, and for.
You cannot allow people to follow you.
That's
you
good.
To do it. Yeah.
All right, good to know. Hope that helps you guys out there too.
Well, we definitely hope that you've enjoyed and gotten a little bit of information on social media, that you've come away with a new view maybe on social media, the good, the bad, and how we can be better.
Right.
We want you to, of course, follow the hashtags, create your own, share them with us, share your view on a new view and social media, and let's take away a challenge. If we can just click with compassion, we can click with intention, if we can speak life, if we can look at everything from an heavenly viewpoint and not a fleshly viewpoint, just think of how much better we can make our social media feeds. We hope that you've enjoyed this. We hope you'll stay tuned to A New View every week.